Okay, and then I'll take that dirty brush that I just loaded that color on and go over to a little bit of white. And we end up with a very dull green. Okay, now I'm just going to start tapping a dark shape in here. I don't really know exactly what it's supposed to look like, being that it's going to be covered up later in the painting, so I just kind of tap in something. Keep a pine tree idea in mind with some fatter shapes for branches. The only thing that you'll see on this is these right-hand branches, because we're going to cover the rest of it up with a big tree in front. So I just kind of throw it in. Okay. Now with my liner brush, if I go through a little bit of this Van Dyke brown, I can lay in a few branches. This has to be very thin though. I'd say at least 5 or 6 drops of paint thinner. Spin that brush through the paint. Okay. Now remember, don't get involved in a lot of detail here because this is all going to be in the background. And when you're using the liner brush, sometimes the quicker you do it, the better it comes out. That's something I think a lot of my students don't realize, is sometimes the harder you try on something, the worse it comes out. You have to sort of just relax and let it flow. And don't try to make every branch, real prominent. Just let a few of them sort of stick out off the sides. Some of them don't even have to be whole branches, just little hooks coming out, like little starters. Okay. Now, loading up a little bit more of that same color under the big brush, we're going to try to set in the lay of the land here down at the bottom. There'll be some bushes coming out and going around here like this, and maybe there's another tree over here. Okay, a few sticks, just scratching them in with the tip of the knife. And now we're ready to start on our big poplar trees. Some people call these birch trees, some people call them poplar trees. They can be either. Kind of depends on how big they get on you. Okay, just loaded some Van Dyke brown on my knife and just kind of throwing it right on there. I just sort of get an idea of the shape and then go back and fill it in. You want to make sure that it's getting progressively larger towards the bottom. You don't want a big bump in there or anything that's going to make your tree look strange. Let's see. We'll put another one right beside this one too. Maybe he has a little curve. They say trees are like people, and I believe that because every tree has a certain curve or bend in it. Just like every person, have a curve and bend in them sometimes. It just depends. This one right here, we'll put in just a little bit heavier because we're going to need more white to pick up on the side of that to get a brighter highlight. And all of a sudden he's a little bigger too. That's a nice thing about this. If you make something a little bit too big, it's no problem. It's really very tough to make a mistake in this style of painting. Okay, now I wipe the knife off and get a little bit of titanium white on there. This is where you do that very, very light touch, just bringing the white right across the front of the tree, mostly just on this right-hand side. And if you do it very light, kind of like the snow on the mountains, you'll end up with a paper effect on the tree. Almost looks like you go up and peel it off after it dries. This sells paintings real well. People really like it when the paint sticks out off the canvas like that. But you don't want to go back over those strokes very many times or you end up flattening it out too much. A little bit of phthalo blue and midnight black together for a shadow color. And I just mix that real quick. Leave it kind of marbled. And with a roll of that, you can come in on the other side and just barely any of that. Just a here and there type thing on that left-hand side of the tree. Okay, now we can start in with some heavier branches. This time I'll use midnight black for my branches instead of the brown. That way we'll get a darker, more close-up effect. Now, if you're not having good luck on these branches, it might be because your paint's not thin enough. But remember, most of everything we put in is going to be covered up later in the painting, so you really don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this. Sometimes the easiest way to do a painting is quick. The first time I do one, I usually take about an hour on it, and then the second one, maybe a half hour. People have asked me a lot of times, when you're on TV painting, don't you have to paint very fast, very quick? And the answer to that question is no. Sometimes I even have the problem of getting a painting done too quick if I'm not real careful. So I have to stand here and flap my jaw a lot. Maybe just some small branches down here on the bottom. Keep in mind that each branch is going to have some foliage on top of it, so try to make them like a little arm sticking out there with a hand on the end of it holding up something. I think about Y's and V's when I'm doing these, because you really don't want to put 3 prongs on one branch that are all sticking out together. It'll look like a pitchfork. If you have just 1 or 2 of those, though, that wouldn't hurt anything. Okay. There's some darker branches.